What's my thesis? Yeah, you're giving a purpose. Your purpose is to give information to freshmen at a freshman orientation in 10 minutes. How do I make a thesis out of those four things? How do I make a declarative statement that summarizes everything that I am doing with those four ideas? Be involved, take care of your well-being, adjusting from high school to college, taking care of yourself educationally, and you've got this idea of I've been there. What do we think? How do we summarize that?
Something in college.
So something with college.
Yeah.
We're going to have kind of like a college theme there. Thesis statements are very difficult to make. They seem like, oh, it's a sentence. I can do that. Your sentence is summarizing 5 to 30 minutes of what you're going to say. That's not easy. So what do we think? Does anybody think they can come up with one or two sentences that summarize and synthesize those four ideas? Okay, Becca?
As you adjust to college, know that I've been there and that the main points are to take care of yourself educationally, your well-being, and involvement.
So I'm going to tell you about college through my experiences, then you preview your four main ideas. You've accomplished two things with one sentence: preview and a thesis. A preview is not a thesis, and a thesis is not a preview. They're two separate things, but they can come together in one sentence. Because I'm not very bright. And I have a very short attention span, and a lot of humans do as well. You need to preview and summarize all your ideas so I can get, you created me the roadmap, and that's going to happen in the first 30 seconds, folks. So your thesis did not come first. Your thesis came after a topic, a brainstorm, a grouping, an elimination, and then creating a theme. If I've been there, then your thesis was written. See what I'm saying? So as Connor pointed out, I start with a thesis, and then at the end, it could be thrown out the window based on what you're actually talking about. And you might be writing this up, and then, you know, I'm just going to get rid of this involvement because I don't have enough time, or it just it's not going to land, or anything like that. Questions, comments, concerns? Yes?
I just noticed that you wrote involvement.
I did. It's a new term that I've phrased. I'm gonna trademark it. I don't know what it means yet, but involvement.
It's to be like locally involved with your community's metro system.
Oh, see, perfect. So here in Peoria, not much. Just the buses, right? Good. Yeah.
So for like a best man speech, would you need a thesis for that?
Yeah.
You would.
Yeah. What's your? Yeah, it may be. You know, he's the best guy in the world. I don't know. Very simple, but folks. Sometimes best man speeches just seem like you default to telling a funny story about them, which is fine. Those are good best man speeches. However, at the very beginning, a good speech is going to, one, draw me in with the attention-getting device and tell me what I'm going to hear. Because then I'm trying to pay attention. Do I want to pay attention? I'm asking those things. So yes, there's a thesis in every oral presentation that you give. It can be very simple, very broad, or very specific and focused. Questions? That is not the only way to create a backward design for your speech. Maybe you have one of those visual organizers. Maybe you like to create a concept map, how these things connect. This is incredibly important for your final two speeches, your informative and persuasive, because there has to be a train of thought. Your SOS speech or special occasion speech, you can get away with those more because it can just kind of be a narrative stream of like what you were thinking. That's okay. But this is, we're going to talk about it again when we get to the outlining chapter. But I didn't want you to just think, what do I do next? I've got a topic. How do I start creating a 5-minute speech? This is the process, and then you can do that today. That's what we're going to do in our workshop. So I would like to discuss just a few questions that you have before we get into our workshop. What questions did you write for today, and how did we answer those questions? I know there's 24 of them out there. Yeah, Ben, thank you.
My question was, I know a few discussions ago we were talking about like, is it possible to be completely objective? And so it mentioned this in a chapter again, and it said like, we rarely, if ever, achieve the ideal of perfect objectivity. But the book also says on the contrary, like potential topics grow from such life experiences. So an audience doesn't expect like complete objectivity. They expect like for you to be open-minded as a speaker.
And they like to see that you're bringing up multiple perspectives. Now, a best man speech, how am I showing my objectivity? It's a little bit, because you're incredibly biased. You're the best man, right? There's an adjective in front of you that's saying that you're incredibly biased. So it's not an exact science, but absolutely, that's something that we should be following a basic foundational level there. Good. What else? Yeah, Alex.
I wrote the question, like, what does it mean to be both ethical to the topic and, like, the people that you're presenting to? And, I said that it was kind of like a basis of both being knowledgeable and fair to the topic of, like, basically, the last thing you want is, like, you ignorantly speaking on a topic or, like, presenting false information.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, in that best man speech, if you, like, told a story that wasn't about, it was just, well.
Mm-hmm. I Googled something. It sounded like something this guy would have done.
Yeah.
So Andrew, I'm going to be checking all of his against Google, right? Pat, I just got to look up Pat's life story. Yeah. One more. Violet.
So I have the characterizations of an effective purpose. So like the first one, the reaction of the audience. You don't want indifference because that really does nothing for you. You have to be clear because if your audience is confused, then that's bad too.
Mm-hmm.
What else did you do? Realistic goals that, so if you're speaking on a topic about biology and DNA, how like the government controls your DNA stuff, you want to be, producing topics that like interest the reader and how it affects them personally, because I don't want my DNA out there to be used.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the ethical, are you giving giving the facts, stating your opinion, but not being completely biased.
Yeah. All of these things come back to that bias and understanding it, right? So what I am asking you to do is you start to create these things. First of all, if you're writing your introduction first, take a step back and figure out, why am I writing this first? Because it makes sense it's what you write first, but it introduces what you're talking about. And your conclusion wraps up what you talked about. And if you haven't written what you talked about, you got a problem. Okay? So this is a process of trying to make this relatable and understandable. You've been sitting with this material and what you've been writing and editing for 3 weeks. We get to see it for 5 minutes. We have no background knowledge of what you're creating. You have to make this thing dummy-proof. That's what your goal is for speeches, is to clear preview, very articulate ideas, backed up with research, and you're trying to eliminate the bias, and then you summarize it again. You repeat a lot in speeches, but you try to create a rhythm. And that's what we're going to talk about in chapter 16 next week, is how do you find a natural rhythm and cadence for you. It's not the same for all of us. Okay? Again, we're going to talk about outlining and special occasion speeches later, but I wanted to first talk about this and how we actually create a thesis statement. So I'm going to give you roughly 20 minutes now to ask me questions, to workshop, to write things down, whatever you can do to move past the Dakota, I have a topic. I would like you to walk out of here, Dakota, I have a topic and some possible main ideas, maybe a structure, maybe an outline, maybe an entire speech, I don't know, but I'm not asking anything to be turned in. Do you have any questions for the group that I can answer before you get started?